What's going on, everybody? Josh Engleman here for Stokastic.com, back after a bit of a hiatus since the end of last season. I am here with my NFL DFS contenders for week one. Main slate stuff, baby. Here we go. I'm giving you my top 5 quarterbacks, running backs, wideouts, tight ends, and defenses. You see the defenses on the screen. I'm not breaking down the defenses because I believe that is a fool's errand, but you can see the data in front of you. The Washington Commanders in the top spot. I'm not gonna lie, I would have called them the football team. I completely forgot that they were the Commanders. That one's gonna take some getting used to. I am very happy that this is going to fix all of the abbreviation issues that we've had for Washington over the past couple seasons. So go Commanders as your number 1 defense. Before we do anything else though, like, subscribe, notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow me, this guy right here, on Twitter at Josh Engleman. It is the only place you'll see the updates to my Sims. And they're coming out Sunday morning, so be ready for that because I'm on content at 9 a.m. Plenty of time to get some updates out for you guys, so keep your eyes peeled for that. We're going to talk about prize picks in a little bit for sure. I want you guys to hop in the comment section. Let me know what you like, what you dislike on this video. If you're seeing something that I'm not seeing, I want to know it. I want to make sure I've got the updates for you guys later on, so let me know what you like. Let me know if you disagree, agree, all that good stuff. Let's have a good chat in the comment section. You can see the Commanders at the top of the defenses. Who will be my top 5 QBs, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends? It's time to find out, everybody. Everett, Freiermuth, Smith, Kittle, Goddard, and then Darren Waller in at number 5, 7K, projected for 10 fantasy points, taking on the Chargers. Raiders are 3.5-point dogs with a 52.5-point total. Probably not likely to go north of 30, but 7% chance to be in the optimal. What's most interesting to me here for Waller is what is the impact of Davante Adams? Is the field a little bit more open now? I think there's a bigger error bars on Darren Waller than there were before. That's very interesting to me. I can't even talk. I'm just excited to do this video. It's very interesting to me to see what we're going to get out of Waller. I think the variability is higher. I like him in GPPs, and that's why we see him in at number 5. To number 4 we go. That's $5,700 TJ Hockenson, projected for 9. Lions are taking on the Eagles, 4.5-point dogs, 48.5-point total. You know they're going to have to throw, or at least you certainly expect it. And I would be more than happy to get to TJ Hockenson, but there's a 58% chance that he scores less than 10 fantasy points, so be ready for that as well. 9% chance, though, to be in the optimal is really all that matters to me. We got to judge these guys relative to each other. And right now, TJ Hockenson is better than all but 3 other tight ends for this slate. Do you guys know who those 3 tight ends are going to be? The first one we get to is Mark Andrews at number 3. 7,900 is a pretty big price tag, but I don't mind it all that much. He's projected for 12.5 fantasy points. The Ravens are taking on the Jets. The Jets aren't very good. 6.5-point favorites here against the Jets. A sliver of a chance to go for north of 30, 2.5% of the time it does happen. And he's in the optimal lineup 10% of the time. I think that works. I'm happy to get to Mark Andrews. I think he's going to be a big-time red zone threat in this one. So even if it's not a volume thing because Baltimore gets out in front, I'm expecting a touchdown pretty early from Mark Andrews. Taking a pretty sizable jump up in tier here. That's Kyle Pitts in at number 2, 6K, projected for 10.5. Atlanta taking on the Saints, 5.5-point total, just a 5.5-point underdogs, just a 43-point total. You don't expect north of 30, but 14% likelihood to be in the optimal. I love this price tag for Pitts. Just compare that to Mark Andrews. I don't think these guys are significantly different. You certainly imagine Atlanta having to throw a lot. Kyle Pitts just works at 6K. That is a price tag that's going to fit very well no matter what style of build you're doing, whether you're trying to bring a quarterback along for the ride or you're doing anything at all. Kyle Pitts just works because of his price. And then we close it out, obviously, with number 1, Travis Kelce. He is 8K, projected for 14 fantasy points. Kansas City taking on Arizona. They're 6-point favorites, and the total is 54. Monstrous. You know they're going to be throwing. You know that Kelce could likely pick up additional work now that we don't have Tyreek Hill on the Chiefs any longer. Again, this could be a lot like, it's sort of the opposite of Darren Waller for me. Does Hill moving make things better for Kelce or worse for Kelce? We're going to find out. 3% chance to go for north of 30, 16% likelihood to be in the optimal. Kelce and Pitts separating from the pack, my 2 favorite tight ends. If you've got the money, though, pay up for Travis Kelce. What a hot take. Cooks, Thielen, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Marquise Brown, and DJ Moore in at number 5. 6,400 there for Moore. Projected for 11.5. Carolina taking on Cleveland. The game is a pick'em. The line is 42. Really fascinating game. The entire state of North Carolina is going to be all over this one. I know the Wilmington contingent going to be loading up the bars for the Panthers game. 3% likelihood to go for north of 30 here for DJ Moore. 12.5% chance to be in the optimal. I generally, I like Moore always. I know that he projects very well in the Stokastic projections each week. I roster him pretty regularly each week, and he had a really nice season last year, so I will be doing it again. I have nothing else to add. Hopefully, my number 5 receiver pays off. This one's the fun one. $8,500 DAVANTE Adams in at number 4, projected for 15.5, taking on the Chargers. Slight dogs, but you're expecting a ton of throwing the ball. 52.5 point total. Goes for north of 30, 9% of the time. In the optimal, 13% of the time. Gets his old college buddy throwing him passes now. Is Adams better now without Rodgers and now in with the Raiders? I don't know. Probably not. That doesn't feel naturally successful, but he could also be ripe for another monster year. I don't mind the price tag at $8,500. I love the game script for this one. The fact that it should be close, the fact that we should expect a ton of throwing the ball. All of this looks good. DAVANTE Adams in his debut in at number 4. To the Bengals we go at number 3, 7K, T. Higgins, projected for 12.5 since he taken on Pittsburgh. 6.5 point favorites, 44 point total. 6% likelihood for Higgins to go for north of 30. You get him in the optimal lineup 14% of the time. I think he's a slightly more cost-effective wide receiver than someone else we will be talking about shortly, but I'm going to let you guys know right now. I'm going to tell you guys, a spoiler alert for the rest of the video. I kind of like the Bengals this week. Like I said, I kind of like the Bengals this week. Jamar Chase in at number 2, 8,200, projected for 14.7 fantasy points. Same matchup as T. Higgins in the 3 spot. 9% chance to go for north of 30, 15.5% chance to be in the optimal lineup. If you're interested in stacking a team, I think getting the number 2 and number 3 wide receivers from the Bengals would be a pretty decent look. I wonder where his quarterback ranks. But for now, we got to talk about the number 1 wide receiver. That is Justin Jefferson, 8,100, projected for 15.4 fantasy points. Minnesota, 1-point dogs with a 46.5 point total against Green Bay. 10% chance to go for north of 30. I mean, could have the biggest ceiling on the slate. There are not many other guys that are going to rival that ceiling. Chase, Adams, that's maybe Keenan Allen to a degree, but I love the ceiling of Justin Jefferson. 15.6% chance to be in the optimal. That's slightly higher than Jamar Chase, and that's all we need to know. Justin Jefferson, your number 1 wideout this week. Now, before we get to the running backs and the quarterbacks, I got to talk a little bit about Prize Picks, the presenting sponsor of this video. Head on into the description. You don't even have to use a promo code. Just click the link, sign up, make a deposit. You'll get a deposit match bonus of up to $100. So if you put in $20, they'll give you 20. But if you can put in 100, and I really suggest that you do, free money doesn't come along all that frequently. You want to make sure that you take advantage of these types of deals. You'll get $100 on that first deposit if you put in another 100. We've got tools at stokastic.com that can help you out. You don't have to worry about optimizers. You're picking player props. You're building parlay cards that can net up to 10x your fees. Eric Lindquist makes exceptional Prize Picks videos on our YouTube channel. Don't skip those either. He'll be giving out the goods. So all you have to do, description of the video, click the link, sign up at Prize Picks, get up to $100 on your first deposit. Eckler, Gibson, Jones, Mixon, Swift, and then Alvin Kamara in at number 5, 8,500, projected for 16.2 fantasy points. Saints are 5.5 point favorites against Atlanta, 43 point total. 8% chance for Kamara to go for north of 30, 13.5% chance of being in the optimal. I have always loved rostering Alvin Kamara because you can get there in multiple ways. You can get there just from the carries, which are probably going to be minimal. He's not like just going to be out there grinding 30 carries, but you know, you get 10 to 12 carries, 7-8 targets, something along those lines. You're in for a big day. He's just always involved. I hope the volume is even higher than that. I will happily take Alvin Kamara against the lowly Falcons. Yeah, I said it. I would have liked to get a little bit more Jonathan Taylor and have him rank higher, but 10,200 is a hell of a price tag for week 1. Projected for 19.5 fantasy points. Indy's taking on a Houston team I'm not all that worried about. Colts are 7-point favorites, 46-point total. There's a 16% chance that he goes for north of 30, a 14% chance he's in the optimal, which means that you kind of need Jonathan Taylor to go for that much because 10,200 is no joke. But I don't want to make it sound like I don't like Jonathan Taylor. Even with that price tag, he's still the 4th best running back in my eyes. That's still a guy that I'm going to have to get to quite a bit. The ceiling for Taylor is massive in this spot. Speaking of guys with big ceilings, Christian McCaffrey in at number 3 because he's healthy for week 1. 9,500 for McCaffrey, projected for 19.3 fantasy points. Carolina in a pick'em against Cleveland. 13% likelihood to go for north of 30. 15% chance to be in the optimal. This isn't the format that fits Christian McCaffrey most. He's obviously a better play in general on DraftKings because he's likely to catch like 37 balls and that extra half point will be really relevant. But even at just a half-point PPR, it changes nothing. Christian McCaffrey is always an elite option whenever he's healthy enough to start a game. We expect that to be on Sunday, which means I'm going to be getting to Christian McCaffrey. Speaking of injured running backs, Saquon Barkley in at number 2, but he's a different kind of play because he's just 6,800, projected for 14.5. Giants are 5.5-point dogs against the Titans, 44-point total. 3% chance to go for north of 30. Honestly, feels a little low to me. 15% chance to be in the optimal, though, feels right on the number because he's cost effective. I just showed you guys the prices for Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey. Now, those guys should be more expensive than Saquon Barkley, but would you be surprised if Saquon Barkley, finally healthy, just went nuts on Sunday? I know I wouldn't. The talent is absolutely there. One thing I do want to point out, though, 15% for Barkley, 15% for McCaffrey, basically tied, and also basically tied for the number 1 spot. And that number 1 guy is the guy that fits this format a little bit more. Derrick Henry, 9,700, projected for 18.4 fantasy points. Titans, 5.5-point favorites against the Giants and Barkley. 14% chance to go for north of 30, 15.5% chance in the optimal. Those are all basically the same. It's a 3-way tie. Henry gets the nod, and honestly, it's because half-point PPR is not as important to Derrick Henry. I expect the Titans to win the game, and I expect Derrick Henry to run all over the Giants. That makes perfect sense to me in my head, considering he generally just does that. Now, before we hit those quarterbacks, one last reminder: like, subscribe, notification bell, all that good stuff. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Engleman. Hop in the comments and let me know what you think of the picks across all of the positions. I definitely want to hear it. Make sure you're tuning in on Sunday, 9 a.m. I'm going to be talking a little shop to kick off 4 straight hours of NFL coverage. Burrow in at number 10. Then we've got Carr, Tua, Winston, Rodgers, and Kyler Murray in at the number 5 spot, 8,200, projected for 21. Dogs here. Big dogs, honestly. 6-point dogs with a 54-point total against the Chiefs. But in terms of ceiling, Kyler Murray certainly has it. 16% chance to go for north of 30, but just a 6% chance of being in the optimal. I said this in the DraftKings video, so if you watched that already, I'm about to repeat myself, but it's the same thing here. Picking an individual quarterback to be in the optimal lineup, very difficult, very flat. Not going to see a lot of guys separating from the pack. Your quarterback is dictated by the things that you're doing at running back and wide receiver. So, Joe Burrow, 10th, maybe not looking as great. 2 out of the 3 top wide receivers, however, are also Bengals. You can't tell me that stack doesn't look good. Or you could just play Lamar Jackson by himself and hope he just runs all over the New York Jets. 8,500 projected for 22. They're 6.5-point favorites. He's 19% likely to go for north of 30. 8% chance of being in the optimal. I don't really think I need to explain why you play Lamar Jackson in fantasy. He's an exceptional threat with his legs. The possibility for touchdowns is honestly endless in this one. And when you face the Jets, you're just generally more interested in the other team. At number 3, we've got Justin Herbert, 8,400, projected for 22. The Chargers are taking on the Raiders. 3.5-point favorites here, 52.5-point total. So you assume Herbert's going to be throwing the ball a bunch to hang up all these points. 21% chance to go for north of 30 fantasy points. 8% likelihood to be in the optimal. Similar to Lamar Jackson, I think Lamar would rank a little bit higher if the total were higher, but there's just so much more room for fantasy points in this matchup that it's hard to want to get away from Herbert. We saw Keenan Allen in the top 10 when we looked at the wide receivers, so there's a pretty natural pairing for you. Another obvious option at quarterback is number 2, Pat Mahomes, 8,700, projected for 23, 6-point favorites against Arizona. We know they're going to throw the ball like crazy. Huge ceiling out of Mahomes. 25% chance to go for north of 30 fantasy points. 8% likelihood to be in that optimal. We'll see what this offense looks like without Tyreek Hill, but I'm sure that Pat Mahomes will have no problem finding every other pass catcher on the field. I expect monster things for him here against Arizona. Finally, we close it out, spoiler alert, with the same quarterback on both sides. That's Jalen Hurts. 8K projected for 23 fantasy points. Philly taking on Detroit, 4.5-point favorites, 48.5-point total, 21% chance to go for north of 30, and a 10% chance to be in the optimal. The only quarterback to hit that double-digit mark. You're probably playing Hurts in cash if you can. If you need to drop down, I could also see other scenarios, but I love Jalen Hurts this week. I very rarely want anything like it's easy to target against the Detroit Lions pretty much always. I don't care what kind of changes they make. This year is no exception. I think Hurts is in for a big day. That's why you see him here. That's why you see him in our projected ownership at the top. Jalen Hurts is your number 1 quarterback for week 1. There it is, everybody. NFL DFS contenders on FanDuel for week 1 in the NFL are done. It's complete. It's over. I'm finally back. It's great to be talking about it again. I love doing these contenders videos. They'll be out every week for the main slate. You'll also get me for Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, and Monday Night Football. So make sure you're keeping your eyes peeled for the 8 different contenders videos for DK, for FanDuel, that'll be showing up every single week of the NFL season. Thank you guys for watching. Good luck this weekend. I'll talk to you guys Sunday morning for my contenders video for Sunday Night Football.